In my mind, I was like, guy, you no try at all. Now that you know she's dead and suddenly not a threat to you, suddenly she's innocent. Hi, it's Rabo. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about Joan of Arc, her life, how she basically won victory for France in the war, and how she paid for it with a sham trial that eventually led to her death at the age of 19. I was really shocked when I found out that fact. I thought she was older. I don't know why, but I always thought she was older because when they talk about her and all the things she achieved, she sounds older than she actually was. Joan of Arc, nicknamed the Maid of Orleans, is basically a hero in France for her role in the 100 Years' War and also a canonized saint in the church. She's a patron saint. She's Saint Joan. She was born to peasant farmers in northeastern France. She was basically illiterate. She could not read or write, but her mother had raised her on love for the church. She was young and all its teachings, but it wasn't all roses because at that time, France and England were in a war called the 100 Years' War because it had been going on for a very long time. And France was losing because England was employing scorched earth tactics since all the fighting basically had been happening in France. The king of France at the time Joan was born was Charles VI. Now, Charles VI had an ongoing struggle with mental illness and he was deemed unfit to rule. He had children though, and there was basically a fight between his brother Louis, the Duke of Orleans, and his cousin John the Fearless, the Duke of Burgundy, over who would gain guardianship over the children and, more importantly, regency over the throne, because whoever controls the children controls the throne. They had been back and forth between them. They were each accusing each other of very heinous crimes. John the Fearless accused Louis of sleeping with Charles's wife Isabeau of Bavaria. Louis in turn accused John the Fearless of kidnapping Charles's children. Like, things got that bad between them and the accusations, they were lobbying back and forth. Eventually, Louis was assassinated under the orders of John, and his son grew to be, his son who was also called Charles, grew to be the Duke of Orleans under the custody of his grandfather, who was the Count of Armagnac. This was known as the Armagnac faction, while the faction under the leadership of John was known as the Burgundian faction. King Henry V took advantage of this, like, fighting going on, the infighting between the different factions in France. He took advantage of the fighting going on between them and invaded France in 1415 and got control of several towns in France. Meanwhile, John the Fearless killed the count and about 2,500 of his followers, and that was a big deal then because he basically had gotten control of a lot of France too. Then the new heir to the throne, Charles VII, different from Charles of Orleans as the Duke, invited John the Fearless to a peace meeting, trying to get, promising him protection and trying to get him to sign a peace treaty, promising that there will be peace in France, to consolidate their power so that they could face their main enemy, as the British people. But even though Charles had promised John protection, the Armagnac faction attacked and assassinated John, and Philip the Good, that's the successor of John the Fearless, blamed the fact that John died on Charles VII and decided to ally the Burgundian faction with the British people. And I told you already that they had both already, the British people and the Burgundian faction had actually conquered a lot of France. So with this allyship, they conquered a lot of France. Like basically, they got control of a lot of France. In 1420, Queen Isabel made a decision that was kind of shocking. She signed the Treaty of Troyes, which basically handed over the throne to Henry V and his sons, basically stating that her son Charles VII would never get the throne, which basically lended legitimacy to the rumors that had been going around that Charles VII was not the actual son of the king that died as Charles VI, but instead was the son of Louis, his brother. Although there has been no definite proof whether that's actually the truth, but the reasoning was basically, if he's truly the son of the king, Isabel would not have signed such a peace treaty, basically like delegitimizing her son and just removing him from his birthright basically. In 1422, Henry V died and left his son Henry VI as king. By this time, much of northern France had already been occupied, including Joan's village of Domremy, and a lot of people were forced to abandon their homes in search of like safer ground and try to get to safety and basically trying to escape the British army. At the age of 13, Joan of Arc began hearing voices. She called the voices her council and she identified them as Archangel Michael, St. Catherine of Alexander, and St. Margaret of Antioch. And the voices counseled her that she was a prophesied hero basically, or heroine, who was to save France from the invasion of the British. She took a vow of chastity and went to Vancouver, which was basically like a stronghold of the faction that was in support of Charles VII gaining back his throne. When she got there, she was rejected because at that time she was a woman and women weren't really allowed into the army back then. But she persisted and eventually she got a strong following behind her, who also believed that she was the virgin that was prophesied to save them from the British invasion. After she was accepted, she cut her hair, dressed in men's clothing, and she went to Charles VII's palace. Although his ministers and his advisors, they did not really believe her, they did not accept her, Charles VII believed in her mission and he accepted her and he sent her off to Orleans wearing a white dress and a white horse to lead the army, where she drove back the Anglo-Burgundian forces and eventually reclaimed many of the towns that they had taken over. She forced the army, like the Anglo-Burgundian army, across the Loire River, and after this defeat, she went on to gain many victories. She basically regained control back of several towns that they had taken over. Her reputation spread. She basically became an acclaimed name in all of France, and due to her efforts, in 1429, Charles VII was crowned King of France. In 1430, Charles VII ordered her to confront the Burgundian assault on Compiègne. She obeyed his orders, but disaster struck. The Burgundian army captured her, and then they sold her to the English. She was put to trial on 70 charges, including heresy, witchcraft, and cross-dressing, because remember, she had to dress like a man so she would fit in more with the army for like free movement and things. The Anglo-Burgundian faction were trying to get rid of a major enemy because she had been growing in reputation, she had been winning a lot of battles, she had basically almost single-handedly won back France, much of France, for Charles VII's faction. But the thing is, Charles VII's advisors had already gotten to him by that time, and they advised him that she had become too powerful to control and she could eventually come for his throne, and Charles VII refused to negotiate for her release or pay a ransom or even attempt to rescue her in any way. He basically betrayed her and left her to her fate. Traitor in capital letters. In May 1431, after she had been in captivity for over a year, had probably been tortured and under the threat of death, she was forced to sign a confession that she had lied about divine guardians, that she had received divine counseling to fight against the British, and that basically everything she had said was a lie, and that she was trying to feel basically they just forced her to recant all her statements, trying to discredit her so that her supporters would let her go, and that she would go back to wearing female clothing and not male clothing. And she was eventually sentenced to perpetual imprisonment, which was basically like life imprisonment, no more freedom, no nothing. So they wanted to discredit her and basically just shut her away, forgotten. See, the thing is, why they tried to get her to recant her statement is because the British had been claiming that they were also under divine guidance by the church to basically claim France and rule France. And if in comes this woman saying she's under divine guidance to save France from Britain, if she's equally under divine guidance to save France from Britain, it brings into question the British statement that they also have a mission from God to rule Britain, to rule France. It proves that they're just being power hungry and not under any mission. So that was basically their thought process in trying to discredit her. They weren't just doing it willy-nilly. There was a method behind their madness. But a few days later, when the judges went to her cell, she was back in male clothing, and she said that the voices in her head told her that she had gone against God's will just to save her life, and she claimed that she would rather be put to death than to go against God's will. The church handed her over to the secular officials, and she was taken to the marketplace at Benin and burned at the stake. She was just 19 years old. They were doing this to a teenager. A teenager. Wow. She was just a little girl. She was so young. When they talk about this, they make it sound like Joan of Arc was one elderly woman, somebody above 30, 40, a mature grown woman. No. All these literal war crimes happened to a child. Just keep that in mind. Let that sink in. Killing her ended up being a big mistake because she became a martyr for the cause of France. She became a big inspiration to the French, and eventually, due to her death, the morale of the French came way up, and they basically beat back the English successfully and reclaimed France. 20 years after her death, guess what? Charles VII ordered a new trial, basically overturned all the accusations against her, and in my mind I was like, guy, you no try at all. Now that you know she's dead and suddenly not a threat to you, suddenly she's innocent. No, you could not attempt to rescue her again. You do not. No, it's not that somebody is dead that you're not doing medicine after death, trying to form I'm a holy, this person is a good person, now that you know that she cannot do anything to you. See, people are wicked in this world. People are wicked. Wow. It is 20 years after her death that he's trying to now reclaim her name, trying to I don't know what he feels like to achieve, because she's already dead. There's nothing it will change. The deed has already been done. But she was beatified in the Notre Dame Cathedral by Pope Pius in 1709, and she was eventually canonized by Pope Benedict XV in 1920 and became the patron saint of France. The whole reasoning behind her death wasn't even because she was she was a woman or anything. No, see, the fascinating thing is she basically became a threat to a lot of people. She was a threat to the English, who were claiming divine power behind their conquering of France, and then she could have actually been rescued, but Charles' advisors had told him that she was equally a threat to him, that she could come for his throne. And see, usually in those days, how they try to get rid of, I guess, female threats then was that, okay, at least if she's a threat to you, if you marry her, you get to share in her power and things like that. But you see, Joan had taken an oath of chastity. She had taken a vow of chastity that she was never going to marry or lay with any man. So basically, he could not do that actually, because the prophecy was that there would be a virgin that would come and save France and remove them from the oppression of the British. So she equally blocked that avenue for Charles to like get rid of her or curtail her power. So I feel like Charles capitalized on the fact that the British had already captured her and just pretended ignorance and basically let them do his dirty work for him. And then he came out smelling like roses when 20 years later he fought to overturn her trial and clear her name of all charges. Because something like that has it only has like positive effect on him and his rulership and his, like, I don't know, his reign, because he will forever be known as the person who got her name cleared and basically made sure everybody recognized Joan of Arc as a hero. That's basically positive things to him. But he got England to do his dirty work and reaps all the benefits. I give him 0 stars. He does not deserve any acclaim or anything. He also messed up. He was a traitor. He betrayed her after she basically won his war for him. Honestly, this was so fascinating. I love the story of Joan of Arc. I've always loved Joan of Arc. I don't know why. She was one of my role models growing up, and in fact, I love her more now that I realize that she was just a teenager that attained all these things and physically died wrongly after being abandoned by everybody, both the church and her country. So thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me your thoughts on what she went through, and if you have any other historical figure you want me to talk about, comment down below. Bye.